Boom. All right, guys. Hey, thanks for jumping on with us here today. Sean Connors, CEO of Team Sponsor, checking in with our two resident athletic director experts. Former athletic director at associate athletic director at St. Mary's College, Steve Jacoby, who also is our VP of partnerships here at Team Sponsor, and then also Chris Jacob. Chris Jacob, former athletic director at Clark College up in Vancouver, Washington, and now is regional director for Team Sponsor down in the great state of Florida. How we doing, fellas?
Awesome.
Doing good.
All right, man. Good. Hey, it's appreciate you guys hopping on. We're really putting this together so that we can create a resource for athletic directors, coaches across the country in the high school and collegiate athletic industries, and just give them a resource right now. Message boards, Twitter, Facebook Live, all of those things that all the social media applications that people are tying into. We're going to continue to try to deliver as much content and be a resource. Let people know, hey, this is how people in our industry are being affected, and who better to have on than two guys that have been there, done that. Obviously, these are unprecedented times, and hope that we don't see very many of these in the future. But hopefully, we can be a resource to everybody that's checking in with us here today. And I got a few questions that I figured I'd run by Steve and Chris, who again have walked a mile in your shoes and might be able to offer up some past experiential wisdom, if you will, and share that with you and help you get through these trying and challenging times. So I think I'm going to go ahead and start with the old ball coach here, with Coach Jacoby. Steve, I know you spent you spent the early 80s as a student at St. Mary's College, but you were there a long time in the athletic department. So I'll start with you. Putting yourself in the AD shoes, what was your first reaction if you were an AD after hearing about how COVID-19 has started to affect these campuses and specifically athletic departments?
Well, I think the biggest thing you do as an athletic director, the minute you hear the extent of this, because it is unprecedented. It was thinking about your current staff and current student athletes. How does this affect? What does this affect? Communication lines, making sure that we're being, solid as a team, within a team, and getting our kids together and communicating so that, everybody kind of understands. Because one of the things I'm hearing is a lot of people are, at first we're kind of poo-pooing it. Oh, this isn't that big a deal. I think I would have brought together, the entire student athlete group along with our student staff and coaches and all of our admin and get together and really talk about what's going on and make sure that we're all okay.
Great. Yeah, thanks. It's crazy to think that there's this type of reaction, kind of panic stricken, which is real, right? People are panicked and they have reasons, I guess, to respond the way that they do, and it's important that people in these types of positions that they can lead in the same way that you're just talking about. It's important. Chris, how about you? You put yourself in their shoes as an AD after hearing about the effects of schools and sports from COVID-19. What were your initial thoughts?
Yeah, just a lot of uncertainty, right? Number one, first and foremost, is always about student experience in my book. That's how our athletic department was run. So you're always worried about the students, how they're going to affect it, how they're going to take the news. Especially for the spring sports that I've practiced all year, baseball, softball, track, that have put blood, sweat, and tears already in their fall ball to know that they can't play a championship season. So just worried about their mental health, make sure that they're still in the right place of mind. Reassuring them that, hey, we're going to get this fixed out, even though you may have some questions right now. So it's always first and foremost student athletes and then your coaching staff, because coaches are unsure as well. They have questions just as well as the students do. So it's all about us finding answers for them and assuring them that we're in the right spot, as difficult as the decisions may be.
To explain what's going on. There's an effect that goes on with their families, and there's all your staff and administrators and trainers that are married and have kids and they're in daycare, and so I think it's absolutely about the people and making sure that the other thing is making sure that we're calm, that we're getting the best information and that of course we're going to have the, you know, the kids, the student athletes, and all of us at all of our decisions will be based on their best interests. So, and probably a calming effect, letting them know that, you know, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. We're getting updates just like everybody else, and we'll keep moving forward. And I think just communicating is huge with everybody, because it's gonna, the ripple effect, like on the pond, it's going to be huge, because it's going to trickle down to everybody's families. And my mom that lives in Southern California, how do I read, you know, all those pieces that kind of, as you dig down further, just keeping communication and calm, you know, amongst that whole group.
Yeah, it's interesting you guys bring that up. I mean, my next question was going to be specifically like putting yourselves in a current athletic director's shoes, or for you yourselves going and finding your old athletic director shoes, take them out of the closet, pop in them, and what would be going through your head and how would you respond? You guys alluded to that a little bit. I think right now we're seeing that in real time, right? If you hop on Twitter or you hop on anything, social media wise, you can see how people are responding. And that's, you know, I made a comment the other day. I'm encouraged to see how student athletes are responding. I'm encouraged to see how, you know, coaches, leadership in athletic departments are responding. It's been really encouraging to see people take that very, we'll call it positive and poised approach, or very calm, cool, collected approach. And because they need to right now. I mean, there's a lot of people, like you mentioned, Steve, looking to them for answers. So, you know, being able to see how people have responded so far. It's been 4 or 5 days since, we'll call it the proverbial, you know what, hit the fan. Again, try to put yourself back into your athletic director's shoes. What would you guys do? How would you respond?
You know, just thinking about it, it's the calm on the outside, but it's crazy on the inside of all your thoughts, because you want to make sure that you remain calm for your students, for your coaches, but at the same time, you know, with spring sports canceling, granting an extra year, as an athletic director, you're thinking about, okay, well, if we're giving them an extra year, the next year I already given out those scholarships to freshmen incoming. How am I going to backdate that? Is, if it's the NJCAA or NWAC, which we were in, is the NWAC going to grant the seniors or give me more scholarships for that year, because you're only allotted so many scholarships per sport? But then we don't even give out full scholarships as it is. So who's going to make up that money to bring those students back? So in the back of an athletic director's mind, you're thinking about all this, but you want to remain cool and collective for the students and the coaches to say, hey, we got this going on, one thing at a time. But there's a lot more to think about than just, it's just one canceled season. There's going to be an effect for years to come, especially in a small athletic program.
Yeah, Chris, let me jump in there real quick, and I'll ask you, lead me to my next question then. How does a situation like this affect your entire athletic department, from the student athletes to the coaches to recruiting to scholarships? You take a look at what's happened in the last, you know, week or so. How does it affect you?
Man, this is where you really hope you brought on the right staff, and it's all about who you're working with, what division you're in. I mean, working with Marco in the NWAC, I mean, we had great leadership. From all the way top to our executive chief, all the way down to, you know, athletic directors. And I was lucky to be part of a coaching staff where we had great coaches to ease that mind, to think ahead of situations like this. But, you know, it's tough. It's not an easy thing to overcome, especially when you have to think 4 years in advance about how am I going to get this money for a situation like this, right? To give out more scholarship money than you don't have.
Yeah.
You know,
go ahead.
I was going to piggyback on earlier and Sean's question about what's going through your mind. It just harkens back to everything that we ever went through that was, you know, traumatic. Whether it be 9/11. I think Chris, I shared yesterday, we had a, you know, coach that was actually murdered on Friday night and had to tell the team on Saturday. And in all those cases, there are so many variables, like, you know, who's on the road? Do we have a team on the road? How do we get them back? Where are we going to get housing? Is the, you know, food? Are we going to be able to feed them? The myriad of things that you got to check, you know, are the dorms open? How many kids do we have living off campus? Are we going to have to fly some kids home? We have international kids. I mean, like I told you yesterday, the checklist for this goes on and on, you know, and so
the more, and you hit something on the head. When we would meet and gather, much like we're, when we meet with Sean and E-Team, everybody's kind of delegated. So when you have a great team, you can count on a lot of people. It was great. Somebody could say, hey, look, you're in charge of the Australian kids. You're off campus kids. Get them here. Somebody call the meal hall. Make sure we're getting meals. All the little things that, make kids calm, essentially, so that, hey, I've got a place to live. I got a place to eat. Let's get them home and safe. And then in the back of your mind, you're right. You're going, oh crap, how's this going to affect us in the long run?
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I read a tweet, read a couple I feel like I've been living off Twitter, but last couple of tweets that have really kind of impacted me. Number one, Chris, you talked about leadership at the top of a governing body of athletics. I think of Dr. Parker at the NJCAA. I mean, he came right out and said, hey, look, this is what we're going to do with regards to eligibility. Here's what we're going to do with regards to recruiting and scholarships. And I think that type of leadership, swift, decisive action is calming. Whether it ends up being the right decision in the end, that's for none of us to judge necessarily. It's just that, it does give people, I think, a sense of calm, right? I mean, it's the proverbial calm through the storm, like being the calm, cool, collected, and try to do your best in terms of taking in as much information as possible and then making what you feel is the best possible decision at that point in time. And, we're, I think, better off with people like that in those types of leadership positions to help get through times like this. Something else that I thought was pretty interesting was when I was thinking of how does this affect student athletes specifically. I mean, and maybe you guys can elaborate on this a little bit. How does this affect a student athlete? I mean, in some cases, schools, high school, college, that might be the safest place for some of these kids to be. They don't have the best home life. So for me, when I say that I'm just crushed to hear that sports are being canceled and especially schools are being canceled and kids are being sent home, some of those kids are going home to situations that are not good situations. They're 10 times worse than they were maybe where they were at school. Talk a little bit about just in terms of kind of the psyche of the student athlete, like what they're probably going through right now, having to deal with really just being displaced, right? Having to go back to a place maybe that they don't want to.
As far as sending kids back to homes that aren't desirable, it's funny. I was thinking about, the great thing about team sports is you have some families that'll say, I'll take them. I'll take them. Let's bring them in. With guys from Australia at St. Mary's, we had all these international students that maybe did, travel wasn't an option even. So we had 317 student athletes that, enough of them were close by that we could partner up, get a safe place to stay until we could move from there.
That's great. Yeah, I was going to say the international students, I think that's really relevant for a lot of our college partners, 2-year and 4-year college partners. Chris, I'm sure you had international students. And so that's where, like I said, it's encouraging, right? We're hearing these stories. We're seeing the stories on social media of people taking people in knowing that, hey, look, they don't have a place to go home to, and that they're actually going to end up in maybe an even better situation off campus. Those are the heroing and great stories to hear right now. Chris, how about
really quick? The other thing that's unprecedented now, and I was telling my own kids this, is that we have the ability to do exactly what we're doing.
Yeah.
In 2001, when 9/11 happened, you couldn't FaceTime. There wasn't really an option to keep that human connection possible. And so I'm thinking, again, how I am with technology, but this is absolutely a time where social media is relevant and important, and the opportunity to FaceTime is going to make kids feel safer and calmer, that if they can't physically be together with parents or family, that at least they can do what we're doing.
I was gonna say, man, look at you, the old ball coach. You're on this right now, man. You dealt with a talk about overcome and adversity here. Your laptop froze and you pivot to your phone. You're able to.
See,
you're doing great.
Check on check. And
this is a resource.
Unprecedented.
This is exactly, it's unprecedented. You'll be a resource for every athletic director out there who hates technology. If they see you just pivot on a dime like this in the middle of a podcast, they're going to be good.
Sean, what I was going to say was with students going home to maybe not so safe environments when they go home is, we built such a culture at Clark with our coaches, with our coaching staff, with our administrative staff, and with our team, where there wasn't a time, I don't think, I'm sure there was, but a lot of times either our teammates knew that they didn't enjoy being at home, our coaches knew, which leads us to, I'm sure my coaches or my ex-coaches, previous coaches at Clark, they're checking in every day, seeing how they're doing. But just kind of like what Steve was saying too, with that team atmosphere, they're all on the same text string, and I'm sure they're talking back and forth, whether it be the news, whether it be boys, girls, whatever they're talking about, they're all on the same text string. So I would doubt that there's probably an hour that goes by without the team bonding together, even if they can't see each other.
Cool. Question would be, one of the three things we've been talking about as we've been going through this, and really putting the people first, and people of not only our company internally but externally, the people that we work with, that we support, putting them first. We talk about begin with the end in mind. What does this look like at the end of this? And so begin with that in mind, and then that's going to help you get through this time. Number two, making sure we put people over profit, right? Put people first. Make sure that, that again, the people that we work with understand, hey, look, we're here. We want to be a resource for them and support them any way we can. And then lastly, communication is key. I would say with those kind of three focal points for us moving forward, in an effort to be a resource for these athletic directors, what experiences would you draw on that would help you focus on what you can control, kind of thinking of those three things, to help control and finish, hey, we're going to finish the 1920 academic year, and then we got to get prepared for the 2021 academic year?
Well, Sean, as we talked about, and Chris, you and I talked about, the biggest thing that I could draw on is 9/11. When that happened, you were in such a unprecedented time. Nobody in America had experienced an attack on our homeland like that. And we had, teams in the air, and we had teams going to the airport, and they were shutting down the airport, and how they were going to get home. And so, like I told you before, logistics. And the cool thing is, in athletics, and Chris just alluded to this, and it just made me think how much luckier those kids are to have that base of each other versus a lot of kids that are at home for the first time without that kind of interaction or thing. So I think being on a team was huge, because we could call in, hey, let's get the football guys in. They're going to go do this. We're going to meet with this team and go. So we could control. Here's what we knew. They were shutting down all flights were coming down. We just had a team land at SFO, but they weren't going to let anybody on, to pick them up. We had to. So there were tasks assigned out that I think you just like, and it's the oldest adage in the world about controlling what you can control. So what we did is called the coach when they landed and said, hey, look, nobody can pick you up right now. You guys are fine. Coach, you have your credit card. Why don't you hunker down and feed the team in the airport? Just all the immediate needs, that you had to take care of, then you could go, okay, big picture as we move forward now, what does this afternoon look at? At that time, it was, kind of like now, it's changing hourly, right? And so once we got through some of the first hours, and we continued to over communicate, which I thought was critical. And, Sean, we mentioned this as an E-team family, and all of our people as part of that one of the things that this hopefully will do, and I know this will happen, guys like Chris will call his buddies, and they'll go, what did you do? How are you doing this? That's the amazing thing about, the athletics and the teams that we all are part of, is that there's so many guys to draw on that have been there, done that, or have great ideas. A guy like Chris that didn't go through 9/11 in the same way I did, he may have a totally different perspective that's awesome. And 20 other ADs are going to go, that's what we need to do. That fits us. And I think that's what's really, really neat about being part of something like that that's bigger. As many problems like the biology chemistry guy, they're just going home and saying, hey, do homework from home, right? I'm just going to go home. Well, in our world, in athletics, the great thing was all the people. And what happens during times like these is they end up being the biggest resource and buffer and strength for the whole group.
It's great. Yeah, I like that, Steve. It kind of athletics becomes the glue, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We know that there's glue guys as a part of every team, right? Every successful team, there's glue guys, and then I think in times like this, yeah, you definitely see the cream rise to the top, and athletics seems to be a big part of it, no doubt. Well said.
Sean, what I would say is, if I were Star Athletic Director, I'd be looking at budgets for next year. Right now, there's a unique opportunity, whether it be for the best or for the worst, that you don't have travel for baseball, softball. So you're saving a lot of money. And for a lot of state schools, if you don't use it, you lose it. So what I would tell the team is, hey, we're going to try everything we can to improve, your playing facilities. Make sure that you guys have a great experience for next year. Keep their hopes up and something to look forward for. If we need something, whether it be new dugouts or whatnot, we're saving quite a bit of money because I don't know if you know, but traveling 40 baseball players and having them stay overnight is pretty expensive.
Yeah.
For just one trip. So you can try to find the light at the end of the tunnel of, hey, we're saving this money. Let's try to use it the best way we can to enhance our student athlete experience. So for next year, and we know they lost a year, but let's make it the best they can. For the sophomores, especially at a junior college, they thought that this was it. Well, maybe they get another opportunity now because they're not using this year. Maybe they can get better and try to get drafted. So there's a lot of things that you can try to look for the light and try to find it somewhere. You just got to search hard for it, and you always got to be optimistic.
Yeah, I'm a big Art of War guy, and you guys have heard me say this a lot. But in the midst of chaos is opportunity, and I think that's important for all leaders in every facet, across the country right now for everybody. But I think specifically for athletics, like you mentioned, 2-year and 4-year college kids, high school kids. I mean, I'm standing in line at the grocery store the other day, and this woman who probably had a high school age student, she's talking to the checker and saying, hey, look, I've got a daughter and she's in her senior year, and her senior year of softball just got canceled, and she's being recruited by 4 teams, and these 4 schools were going to evaluate her senior year, and based on how well she did or didn't do, that dictated what type of scholarship, the percentage of the scholarship that she would end up getting. And so that's crushing, right? That's crushing for them right now. But as you mentioned, Chris, and I know Steve, you did as well, there's going to be an opportunity for student athletes like that. It just may not be necessarily apparent to them right this second. There's going to be opportunities, the leadership that are in positions to make decisions, to take into account that those types of dominoes have fallen and how that might affect people all the way down the line. We don't have the answers to it now, but we know that people are working on providing answers so that people do have something to look forward to. So I think it's a great.
Sean, yesterday I talked to Marco at NWAC yesterday. We got on the phone, and they've already moved forward with steps that the kids that are now sophomores get a year back, and they're working with the NCAA. And it's funny, with unprecedented times will come unprecedented responses. So the NCAA is going to have to do some things out of their comfort zone.
Sure.
And like Chris said, you may at the JC level, you may have 17. Let's say out of the whole athletic department, 100 people were going to move on. And you had this incoming class. Well, down that 100 people are now going to stay another year, and you got an incoming group coming in. And again, it brings, for us, that's opportunity, right? There's a hell of a lot more athletes. And I mean, us meaning in athletics, that's great. You have, competition, you have better athletes, you have bigger teams. And the NCAA is going to do some unprecedented things because they have to.
Yeah.
And as far as, when you go talk about funding, I think, Chris, we talked yesterday kind of how, the use it or lose it thing. I'm guessing at some point they're going to have to do something unprecedented and say, you know what, that money's going to have to carry over because we're going to need it. I just think there's going to be some unprecedented answers to unprecedented times.
Yeah, no doubt. Kind of wrapping up here, I was going to ask you guys, what do you think? Take a minute to think about this. If you were going to offer one positive message that you would share with an athletic director, that maybe whether that's to share within the athletic department, whether it's to share with the student athletes, or whether it's just an empowering message for them individually, what message would you send to an athletic director right now?
I can jump in, Sean, because what immediately comes to my head is you're not alone. You're absolutely not alone. And there's strength in that. There's comfort in that you're not left on an island. There's a whole bunch of us in this together. And I think really bright people are running athletics and institutions and athletic directors and teachers and coaches. And they're going to come up with great solutions. And you're not going to be alone. You're not going to be on an island. It's going to be collaborative, and it's going to be something that I've you and I have talked about this a lot, Sean, that I think as a society, as people, as athletes, as, moms, dads, coaches, whatever, we're going to come out of this thing better, And so I think, the biggest thing I would communicate is we got a huge fraternity and sorority that we have to draw on, and you're just not alone.
Great. Well said. Chris, how about you, man?
Man, Steve stole mine real quick.
Yeah.
No, I was really going to say that the athletic world is so small, and there's not a single athletic director or coach that I know that doesn't have a mentor that they can call at a snap of their finger and ask for advice. And same thing with friends. In the South, I think I could have called anybody in the NWAC, any athletic director. I could have called Marco at the time, asked for advice, because we're all in it together. We all may be competing on the basketball court or on the baseball field against each other, but when it all comes down to it, we're all in it for the students. Like, that's what we do. That's why we do what we do. So nobody wants to see another person fail. So if somebody has a good idea, they're going to share it because they want to see the success not only of their athletic department, but for every single student athlete out there. And then another thing is, with all these budget cuts happening, I would just say really fight for your athletic department, because unfortunately some schools think that, athletics isn't really needed. But at the same time, just look at the community that we have. There's nothing like it. Like you said, it's the glue, I think, of every single school, of every single organization. So fight for every position that you have right now, because unfortunately with everything the way it's going, I feel like some positions might be able to be let go. So just fight.
Yeah,
Chris, you bring up a really good point. When I think about things that getting better, I could picture entire academia realizing the importance of athletics now, because I really think they're going to look at it and go, holy God, they really kept this place together. That it's the coaches and the administrators, and they're at the school digging in every day. They're not staying at home sheltered right now. I know I've talked to probably 15 athletic directors that are going into work still because they have kids that are still in flux in some way, that they needed to be on campus for. They're trying to stay home and do the right thing, but it's a really good point you bring up. And I think what'll be neat, I'm hoping, is that fight even gets easier now that they go, athletics really, really is valuable.
No doubt. Well said, guys. Yeah, I think my parting words of wisdom would just be not necessarily wisdom, but just support. Hey, we're going to be here for you guys. Every athletic director and coach in the country can count on us to be there to support them. We're putting fundraising on the sidelines. We're not going to be having too many conversations with regards to that. I think right now it's important to support people and help be a beacon of light for them, allow them to be the glue on their campus. And I think the best thing that we can do is be supportive. And I think taking action on our end is really providing resources like this. So we have interviews set up with athletic directors, coaches from all over the country to just let us know, hey, what is it that you're dealing with? What are some of the challenges that you're facing? They'll share their experiences in terms of how they're doing with it. Hopefully we get some really raw, candid information and insight from them, because I think, like Steve said, it'll help people feel some sense of comfort in knowing, hey, yeah, there's somebody else out there that's having to deal with something pretty at this point, something that's definitely not, it's the first time for them having to deal with it, I guess is the words I'm looking for. So we definitely want to provide that and be a source of information for them. So.
Yeah, Sean, I think you bring up really good stuff. I think we have a unique opportunity without even thinking about business of being part of a solution to a social side of stuff. It's not about anything business wise. It's about being here as a conduit to each other.
Yeah.
We're lucky. We work with thousands of people that are in this industry. And if we can be part of that solution by just helping communicate, getting things out there, sharing ideas, we're going to come out this thing on the other side just a whole bunch tighter than we went into this thing. And I think E-Team has a great opportunity to be a big part of the solution and the communication that goes on during these times.
Yep, no doubt. We're going to do that. That's for sure. All right, guys. Well, hey, thanks. Appreciate it. And we'll look forward to the next budget cut podcast, 19 volume 2.
You guys, thanks.
All right. See you guys.
See you guys.